more than 500,000 visits were made to Food Banks Mississauga and its network of food programs last year. The organization says that is the highest number in its history and a 20% increase from the previous year. The annual impact report says the number of visits per household increased from an average of 3 to 5 times per year in 2019 to 10 times in 2024. 28% of visits were made by children, while 39% were new food bank users. And for more on this report, we're joined live by Food Banks Mississauga CEO Meghan Nicholls. So we appreciate your time. It was just we just spoke not too long ago about the Thanksgiving drive, and obviously the demand is always there. But these new numbers, they are very concerning. Tell us more about them.
Well, we're seeing that folks using food banks, they're eligible to come once a month, and people used to need to come to a food bank maybe 3 or 5 times in a year between a seasonal contract, when they had an emergency expense. But now, 10, 11 months a year, people are coming to the food bank because the cost of living has become so high that every single month they're needing the help of a charitable organization like us to fill that gap between the amount of money they have and the needs that their household has for that month. So it's very concerning that these numbers just continue to rise with no significant intervention from levels of government to make it go down.
Not only what's happening at your food bank, but right across the country, we got numbers saying that about 25% of Canadians are dealing with some sort of food insecurity. When you look at the numbers, and I'm looking at your report, and it's extremely concerning, how sustainable is this situation for you and your organization, and at what point is there, I guess, a break in the levee, and you just can't sustain this kind of help to the community?
Well, food banks aren't primarily government-funded agencies. Unlike many organizations that provide services to the community in Canada, food banks don't receive any money from the provincial or federal governments. And so we receive less than 10% of our funding in Mississauga from the region of Peel, but many food banks don't even get that in their community. And so when it comes to continuing to provide our services, we rely on the generosity of our neighbors during campaigns like our Thanksgiving drive, where generous folks in the community who have some extra funds are able to give them to the food bank so that we can make sure that people's neighbors have food to eat. But as more and more people are experiencing the crunch of this increased cost of living, they're feeling the prices at the grocery stores, they're feeling the prices in rent, they're unable to donate. And there will come a time where food banks are going to make tough decisions. Food Banks Mississauga this year, we were forced to cancel some programs and lay off staff because when we looked at funding long term, it just wasn't there for us to sustainably keep growing at that rate. So it really relies on community generosity every single year for us to be able to keep doing what we do day in and day out.
And I'm just looking at the numbers as you guys report here. In 2020, you had about 162.4 thousand visits in that fiscal year. That number is over 500,000 this year. That is over 3 times. And in the past 5 years or so, we've, as you mentioned, some of the compounding factors, including the affordability crisis, record high inflation. You've got a lot of first-time users, but we've also brought a lot of newcomers to the country as well. Many of them do need that support, many of them asylum seekers and refugees. And I'm wondering what kind of conversations do you have with, federal partners who, your organization, you're trying to help these people, and a lot of those people end up here in Ontario and rely on your food bank. So I'm curious about what are those conversations and the requests to the federal government say, hey, if you're going to bring in millions of people, a lot of them end up at my food bank, we need some help here.
It's not the largest driver of use at food banks, but it has been a significant portion of our usage in the last few years, people that are new to the country. So for instance, this past year, 15% of our visitors were people who'd been in Canada less than a year, whereas almost 30% were people in Canada less than a year the year before. And so we've seen a decrease in the number of, kind of very new newcomers needing to rely on a food bank this year as the number of newcomers has decreased in Canada. So this is just an example of how policy decisions that get made in Ottawa and in MPs' offices come to really the rubber hits the road with community nonprofits like us, where folks haven't thought about the fact of all of those people need something to eat, and maybe the situation that's brought them to Canada is going to mean they don't have access to that as well.
Meghan, I want to give you an opportunity to tell our viewers, what's the kind of food and kind of things that you need, especially as we head into the Thanksgiving drive.
Well, the Thanksgiving drive, our goal is to raise $800,000 by October 17th to see us through the next coming months. And then we'll be back here at Christmas time sharing with your needs then too. So if you're able to make a financial donation, it's way easier than going to the store to buy us some cans. You can do it easily online and get a tax receipt. And for every dollar you give, we'll be able to distribute food for one meal, thanks to the generosity of the food donors who give that to us and the volunteers who work in our organization. So as you're thinking about what you're going to plan for your Thanksgiving meal with your friends and family, please consider making a donation to Food Banks Mississauga as well to ensure that everybody can have that food with their friends and family this season of thankfulness.
And they can go learn more at foodbanksmississauga.ca. Meghan Nicholls, always appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.